let's dive in for a little bit on this right side, the composition and publishing side. All right. So on this right side alone, we're not talking about this side over here. We're not talking about master sound recordings. Just on this left side, there are two sides over on the right under compositions that both equal 100% when a song is born. And of those two sides, again, just over here, we have a songwriter share that equals a full 100%. And we have a publisher share that equals its full 100%. But again, these two 100% sides are just under this bucket over here. We're not talking about that sound recording bucket. Does that make sense? You with me? So if you're a songwriter that writes a song fully by yourself and you are not signed to a music publishing deal, you by default, when you go write that hit song called Mary Had a Little Lamb, by default, you get a full 100% of both sides. Okay? So you get 100% of this and you get 100% of that right there. Okay? Let's say you then go write another song with your buddy. You 50-50 co-write it, and neither one of you are signed to music publishers or have music publishing deals. By default, you get 50% and you still get your 50% of your publishing side. Does that make sense? And your friend gets their 50% and they get their 50% of their publishing side. So over here on this big right side under the composition umbrella, we have these two sides, songwriter, publishing. And I see people out there in the business get these things mixed up. They'll be like, hey, my master and my publishing, and they'll kind of then start talking about things like record labels and artists and studio musicians, and the musicians get publishing, or I'm a songwriter and I get master artist. We're demystifying all that. We have these two nice little buckets that under the two separate buckets, we're starting to build these things out. So when you hear things out there like songwriters and publishing, or a songwriter share or a publishing share, and does a publisher collect on the master? No. Line, this big thick line down the middle right here is putting a nice thick wall up, and the songwriters and publishers, those two sides all fall under this one umbrella over here on the right side. So in these couple examples we gave right here, we talked about you writing a song 100% by yourself where you own and control your own publishing, or you co-writing a song with your friend 50-50 where you each own and control your own publishing. So let's for a moment talk briefly about music publishing deals. So again, music publishing deals are dealing just over here on this right side of the equation. And music publishing deals we could sit down and talk about for an hour, so we're not going to go way in the weeds on it, but what is a music publishing deal? Okay, so because we have the two halves right here, you as a songwriter, whether you're independent or are signed to a music publishing deal, will always, no matter what, unless you sign some absolutely shady agreement that doesn't really exist, but that's an aside, but you will always, no matter what, in a standard publishing deal, you will always own, and we'll say control, but there's some nuance to it, but you'll always own and control this. Let's say, though, that a publisher approaches you. Publishers come in all various shapes and sizes. There's the major labels, major publishers out there associated with the major labels, I should say, like Warner, Sony, Capitol, Cobalt, things like that. There's major publishers, there's independent publishers, a whole bunch of those around here in Nashville that are small companies, teams of 3 or 4, but they're really connected and in the industry. Any company like that, it could just be one person. Your buddy, if they wanted to, could go start their own publishing company and say, hey, I'm going to be your publisher. And they might have never been a publisher before. When you enter into a publishing agreement, what that is saying is you, remember, you're always going to own and control this over here. But a publisher is going to come in exchange for, we'll get into what they exchange for you, and say, hey, we are now going to own and control part of or all of this. Owns and controls this. So why in the world would anyone sign a publishing deal? Well, there's some pros and cons to this. And like I said, I've moved to Nashville, not in a publishing deal. I was signed to a music publisher for 3 years, chose not to renew that deal, and actually go back to being a professional songwriter fully on my own, independent. So I've seen the good and bad of both of this. So why somebody might sign to a music publisher is an advance, meaning I'm a music publisher and these deals and amounts of money, advances, can be structured a lot of different ways, but say, hey, I'm a music publisher. I think you're pretty good. I want to pay you $20,000 a year or $50,000 a year or $1 million a year if you're like, big time songwriter. I'm going to pay you $1 million a year to write songs. And in exchange for that $1 million, let's say I'm going to own and control 100% of your publishing over here. You get your writer share, but I'm going to own control that. What an advance means, and specifically a recoupable advance, this shows up on both sides of the equation, and this is very foundational to understand the music business. An advance basically means if I give you $1 million, the first million you make back, I get all of it. And then $1,000,001, we start splitting according to whatever our negotiated agreement is. So a publisher might say, hey, I'm going to give you an advance in exchange for some of your publishing. So, you think about the new to town songwriter who doesn't make a dollar for music, and somebody expresses interest in them and says, I'm actually going to pay you money to do this thing. Well, it's not like you're getting a salary. Like if you don't recoup that money, it's not like a loan where you're on the line and you have to go write the publisher a check back. I guess that is a pro to it. But $1 million, $100, $1,000, any amount of money that is an advance or a recoupable advance. When you hear those words or those words together, advance, recoupable advance, it's not a free lunch. It's not a salary that you get. It is an advance. We are advancing you money against your future earnings. And, if it's $30,000, that first $30,000 that comes in the door from the songs that you've generated in this publishing deal, we get that $30,001. We begin to split. Another reason why somebody might enter into a publishing agreement is for relationships. A lot of these publishers, if it's a publisher worth their salt, they are connected with people over here on this side of the equation. Artists, record labels, producers, studio musicians, the people that then go record those songs and put them out in the world. You kind of starting to see how those two sides of the equation play together here. But yeah, a publisher, the good publishers are very connected. They're in tune with opportunities and artists. They know other publishers who have great songwriters. So a publishing relationship, a publishing deal that goes well, there is that give and take. If you're giving up some ownership, some control of your publisher share over here in exchange for, hopefully some relationships or some money. Another reason why you might sign a publishing deal is for, it kind of goes with the relationship thing, but pitching your songs to, artists and labels over on that left-hand side, or pitching for TV and film licensing. And another reason why people might sign a publishing deal is for administration. A pretty standard publishing deal is going to include the administration of both of those sides. So even though you will always own and control this right here, your songwriter share, typically in a publishing deal, and we'll get into co-publishing agreements here in a minute, but typically in a publishing deal, your music publisher is going to go collect all of this right here. $100 come in, they're going to go collect it out. Then they'll go divvy it out to you accordingly, typically quarterly or twice a year, or the most standard time frames you see those things come in. So those are some of the reasons why people sign music publishing deals. But you kind of now see, like, we're dealing in this bucket over here on the right side. Music publishing, songwriting, it all flows right over here. With music publishing, you might have heard a term out there thrown around, such as a co-pub or a co-publishing agreement. So basically what a co-publishing agreement is kind of the examples we were talking about up here would be you assigning 100% of this publisher share right here to a music publisher. But like the type of publishing deal I entered into, and maybe if you have some more success, you can negotiate and get a publisher to agree to these kinds of things, is what's called a co-publishing agreement. And a co-publishing agreement is where, again, you own and control this, your songwriter share right here, but and the terms can all be negotiated. It can look a lot of different ways, but let's just, for the example here, say on a co-pub, you own and control this, you own this, because this is your writer share. Remember this right here. But we are going to co-publish, me and the publisher are going to co-publish the songs together. So I get 50% of this side right here, and the publisher gets 50% of this right here. You tracking? Does that make sense? Now, again, the publisher typically has the administration rights to the whole thing. So they'll go collect all of this right here and then divvy me my share here and then divvy me my share right there and then keep this. But again, even if you have co-publishing, if you get an advance, like if it's a $30,000 advance, let's say, the first $30,000 made both off of this right here and this right here is all going to flow back to the publisher right here. So you're starting to understand what recoupable and advance means? Yeah. So that's what a music co-publishing agreement might look like. So let's run an example of like what this might look like in real life. Let's say I write a song. We got a song right here. We got our songwriter share that needs to equal 100%, right? And we got our publisher share that also needs to equal 100%. And let's say I co-write a song with one other person. And let's say I am not signed to a music publishing agreement. So me, I get 50%. And my self-administered publishing company also gets 50%. Let's say my friend has a co-publishing agreement with Sony Music Publishing, let's say. So my friend will keep their 50% right here. And then this will be split up right here where friend's co-pub will collect 25% and Sony will collect, 25%. Does that kind of start to make sense? Now, when you start getting into 3-way, 4-way rights or some of these LA pop songs where there's like 10 writers on songs, like you really start to see people are, they're fighting over pieces of pieces here. But let's say $200 comes in the door on this song we wrote. Cool. We went out, made $200. Sometimes that's easier said than done. It's not always as easy as it sounds to make $200 on a song. But say $200 comes in. Money's going to get split like this. $100 right off the top is going to go to this bucket. $100 right off the top is going to go to this bucket. And then from there, the percentages will just start getting divvied up accordingly, where over here on the left side, I'm going to make $50. My friend's going to make $50. Then over here on the publisher side, I'm going to make $50. My friend's co-publisher is going to make $25 and Sony is going to make $25. This kind of starts to make sense, right? Again, unless this friend has a recoupable advance from Sony, then Sony's going to make that all until they're paid back. So you kind of start to see how music publishing starts to flow and what some of that looks like. You might be wondering who actually collects the music publishing. And remember, if we scroll right back up to the top up here, we talked about this little word right here called PROs. PROs stand for this. This is Performance Rights Organizations. Let's write this down. Performance Rights Organizations. And again, you can get all these show notes that you're seeing done in real time right here over on my website, christianhale.co/free resources. Performance rights organizations are companies such as, you might have heard of these before, ASCAP, okay, BMI, CSAC. If you're a friend up there watching in Canada, SOCAN is one. And you, as a songwriter and a music publisher, you pick one. So you pick one to affiliate with. And what these companies do is they go out and collect revenue on behalf of music publishers and songwriters, both of those 100% shares, okay? And those companies go collect that money and pay it out to the music songwriters and publishers. So what money do those companies go collect? The PROs collect on public performances. Okay, what's public performance? That would be an example of like if you heard your song in Walmart. Our hit song up here we keep talking about, Mary Had a Little Lamb, that we co-wrote, right? If you walk into Walmart and you hear that, these performance rights organizations enter into agreements with places like Walmart and Walgreens and airports and restaurants, and they actually send people out and track this stuff down to make sure, these entities are paying them their licenses, and they go divvy it all up to the songwriters and publishers that it's due to. So they pay for public performances. With that can include live performances. They pay on airplay for radio. And radio airplay is a very, very big one over here on this side of things. So like if you've heard a songwriter say, and we're kind of transitioning into some of this, but if you've heard a songwriter say like, man, like radio is really where the money's at, there is a lot of money over here on this side for radio airplay from these companies, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, SOCAN, very favorable. They also go collect money, these PROs, for like TV play, meaning if you get a synchronization and you're a songwriter that writes a song that gets synced to TV film, and that song plays on, Grey's Anatomy for years and years and years to come, that can be a decent little stream of money that is collected on and paid out by these performance rights organizations right here, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and SOCAN. This isn't actually collected from ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, SOCAN, but CCLI, which is kind of specific to worship songwriting. It's basically the company that goes out and tracks what churches are performing songs. But CCLI can be very, very, very lucrative for music songwriters and publishers that write worship music for the church specifically. So I'm going to throw that in. That's another way that people over here on this pie make money. But that one isn't actually collected by ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, the PROs. But yeah, CCLI. So these are some of the ways that people, the songwriters and music publishers, again, that each have their 100% share. But again, under this bucket over here, we haven't even talked about sound recordings yet. We're getting there. We're going to make a little transition over into that where, yeah, it's kind of going to make sense. But these are the ways that the songwriters and publishers make money. It's public performances, airplay radio, TV play, CCLI money. If your song does get licensed for TV and film, there is an upfront licensing fee. So that's how people over here make money as well. But that one's not actually collected by the PROs either. That would be the music publishers and songwriters getting a license, issuing a license to, the company or the ad agency, whoever that actually wants to license your music. But again, we're talking over here on the right side. And this is where we kind of start to transition over here on the left side with masters and sound recording is a streaming conversation. So music songwriters and publishers do make money from streaming, but it's not near as much money as these people over here. So maybe you guys have heard some press out there, like it's as of the time I'm filming this, like there's some recent press. There's been songwriters and publishers mad at Spotify for a minute now. And as somebody that truly, as a music songwriter and publisher and co-publisher from my publishing deal, as well as an independent artist and a music producer and that whole kind of thing, I play ball in both sides of this here. And so I really see this and live this. So you hear people really mad at Spotify out there. They're mad at the streaming platform saying we're not getting paid enough. Well, the people that aren't getting paid that much are the songwriters and music publishers over here. Per 1 million streams, per 1 million, not per $1 million. We're going to go per 1 million streams. Let's make that right. Per 1 million streams, and this can vary. This is typically about $400 over here. Okay. Now, back in the day when you were selling a physical product, like these songwriters and publishers were making a lot more money because there was a physical product that was getting sold. It's about $400. Again, before we then start dividing up the pie all the different ways, with publishers and co-publishers and multiple songwriters and that whole kind of thing. But per 1 million streams, these people make about $400 on average. It can depend. Over here, though, per 1 million streams over here, these people make about $4,000, like genuinely about 10 times more. So the people that you hear mad at Spotify and Apple Music, and I don't think their anger is bad or out of line or anything like that, the people that you're like, we're not making very much from Spotify, are all the people that play ball over on this bucket over here. But the people playing ball over here, actually, if they're being perfectly honest, are pretty dang happy with streaming. In a lot of ways, the artists, independent or record labels, they would say that streaming is kind of where it's at. So if you hear some people out there say streaming's amazing, streaming is where the money's at, they are probably most likely the people playing ball over here with masters and sound recordings. And the people that are mad at streaming, saying streaming, Spotify, it pays like crap, all that stuff, are more than likely the people over here playing ball, the over here on the composition side, the publishers and songwriters. So again, as somebody that plays ball on both sides, I really see this and live this. So a little bit of piece of free music advice, I always say that I would be a bad advocate, for better or worse. I'm not the type of person that is personally going to go yell at the government and say, hey, go make sure I'm paid more over here. I think it'd be amazing if I got paid more over there. I have a vested interest to get paid more over here with songwriting and music publishing. But I kind of look at this and say, all right, if this over here makes 10x the money as this over here, why would I not figure out how to play ball here? Y'all tracking? You with me? Does that make sense? I'm just looking at it strictly from a business standpoint and say, okay, like how can I be more associated with sound recordings? Hey friend, Christian Hale here. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. Real quick, I actually wanted to let you know that this video is a part of a larger video, which you can find linked down in the description below or over on the end screen. So if this content was helpful and you want to go even deeper on the subject matter and see it in its full context, definitely go check out that video for more. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you real soon.